Jeff the produce bag. Jeff the producer? Jeff the something or other? I don't know. Can I see myself? Can I hear myself? Well, I can't hear myself, but let's see if you guys can. Should be able to. Doing a little check here just to make sure that everyone... Oh, there we go. You hear that in the background? That's me just making sure everything is okay and copacetic, as they say. The language. Well, all right, guys, listen. I'm doing this because I want to just explain a couple of things. It seems that UFC 319 has come and gone, and let me tell you something. It wasn't a bad event. It was fun. Matter of fact, my favorite fight wasn't Khamzat versus Dricus du Plessis, although I think Khamzat fought a good fight. I'm going to get to that right now. The best fight was actually Jared Cannonier versus MVP. And I think that MVP finally proved that you can make a transition from Bellator to UFC if you're a high-level fighter, because he's probably the most successful out of all of them who's done it so far. However, and this is the topic for discussion because I wanted to wait a week because I tried to put something out there immediately, and YouTube does not promote people like me who is not like, I'm not trying to make money off of this. I'm just talking from a fan's perspective, a real fan, not a casual fan, following this from UFC 1, from when Royce Gracie started. And I've, taken jiu-jitsu classes. I earned a couple of belts in jiu-jitsu from legitimate people who are former MMA fighters and champions overseas in Japan. I've competed a little bit in terms of jiu-jitsu, and I do have an MMA background because I am fighting people behind the scenes classes. Now, never fought a formal fight, but I can tell you I do have the experience, and I even reffed a couple of amateur fights, okay? So that doesn't give me some tremendous insight into these things, but it does give me more than most people who speak a lot of garbage and call people like me casuals for saying the fact that the Khamzat versus Dricus du Plessis fight was boring. Now, I'm going to put this into context immediately so that no one gets butthurt or offended, but I'm a baseball fan. At least I was a baseball fan. I used to watch the Yankees when the Yankees sucked. I used to watch the Mets when the Mets sucked, and then they won. Then, of course, I witnessed the 1990... I don't remember what year it was. It was probably the 98 Yankees use my 89 Mets to win. And I was a Met fan when it wasn't cool to be a Met fan, but then they won. And then I was a Yankee fan when they were losing, and it wasn't cool to be a Yankee fan, and everyone just kept calling you an idiot. The funny thing that happens is that once your team starts winning, all these people who said that your team sucked, it suddenly jumps on the bandwagon, even though privately behind the scenes, they've been saying how much that guy sucks. This is the case with Khamzat, okay? I never thought that Khamzat was a boring fighter. I always thought he was a great fighter. I always thought he was a great wrestler. And I don't know why people kept saying he was going to lose his gas tank. I mean, he's smart enough to know, especially after fighting Gilbert Burns. I was about to say George Burns from Oh God, You Devil. You old enough to know that fucking movie anyway. Digress. When he fought Gilbert Burns, it was kind of obvious that after 3 rounds, he was completely burnt out. And Gilbert Burns technically won that fight, in my opinion. But I also see how it could have went either way, okay? But that was the one fight that opened my eyes, and I think a lot of people that basically said, well, if he ever gets into a 5-round fight, let's see how he paces himself. And the fact is, he paced himself perfectly for UFC 319. Don't believe for a second that his plan wasn't to do exactly what he did, which was hold down Dricus du Plessis for 5 rounds in that crucifix position. So getting back to the baseball analogy, right? Just because I was a fan of the Mets, and just because I was a fan of the Yankees, when my favorite team, the Yankees or the Mets, played, and they had a boring game, which is very possible in baseball because people already think that baseball is a boring game. And the people who think that baseball is a boring game are usually boring people who are not that intelligent. I mean, you have to explain it to them. And a lot of people say, well, you have to play it first in order to understand it. No, playing baseball is fun because you got this stick and you got to hit this ball, and it's kind of fun to hit the ball, right? But there is such a thing as your favorite team, despite how good their players are, they can have a boring game. And it's okay for you to say, my team sucked, or that was boring, even though they won. Because you can have a pitcher who keeps missing the plate and throws balls and just walks the other team in. You can have basically an offense who is just getting on base by like not stealing, and they're getting base hits, and they're not hitting home runs, and they're not even trying, and they're just trying to lure the pitcher into making bad pitches so that they can step in it and just like take a base. It is possible for people to make lackadaisical plays in the field, like no double plays or something, and you got to sit through this for 9 innings. Your team can still win. If you're a real fan will say, my team's really good, but the way they won sucked. So for Khamzat Chimaev fans, and I don't hate Khamzat Chimaev, he's one of the best fighters out there. Dricus is one of the best fighters out there, but neither of them are on my top 5 list. I mean, right, and it changes. It changes depending on what I see the guys are doing recently. And it also has to do with how exciting the fights are. I mean, right now, Paddy Pimblett to me is at the top. You have Alex Pereira. The only reason why Alex Pereira is not at the top is not because he lost, but just because he's taking some time off and he's not really out there. I always love watching MVP, and I knew that he was going to finally wake up. So he's on my, exciting to watch list. So it's not that anyone else sucks. It's just I have people that I like watching. I love watching Kayla Harrison. I mean, look what she just did, and she's bringing someone out of retirement to like fight her. There's a lot of exciting people out there, and Khamzat Chimaev, we know what he's going to do, right? He's going to go in there. He's going to take you down in what less than 10 seconds. He's going to hold you down, and presumably, like he's done with his other fights, he's either going to beat you in the first or second round by mauling you. I mean, cracking Robert Whittaker's jaw, or just destroying Kevin Holland, or picking up Asians and slamming them down into submission. I can't even speak. I'm so excited. Khamzat's an exciting person to watch. That's why to sit down in front of the front of the TV, paying $80 for this fucking pay-per-view, and watching Khamzat Chimaev hold Dricus du Plessis down in a crucifix position. Okay, for 25 minutes, and it felt like it was 50 minutes. Was not exciting. It was boring after round 3 because you said, okay, listen, if this is a strategy from round 3 onwards, this is a shit fight. And there's 2 people who made the fight exciting. 2, okay? Dricus du Plessis, because right away when he got taken down, you thought a reversal was going to happen. I mean, this is right. Just watch the first 15 seconds. It looked like Dricus had a plan to reverse everything that Khamzat was going to throw at him, but that's not what happened, right? He flipped him over. He threw me, basically elevated him into the air and did something. I don't want to get too much ahead of myself, but let's just say you're watching the first round. I'm like, okay, if this is the strategy, it seems like he's going to try to wear out Khamzat for a couple of rounds and then he's going to unleash. That almost happened in the last round. There was an opportunity for Dricus. He was on top, 4 rounds of just, getting held down, not being able to do anything, doing his best to get up, and Khamzat just dominated him, kept taking him down with those little, I don't want to say gay slaps, but I don't want to say they were, effeminate slaps, but they didn't do much. Yeah, of course, your face is going to get damaged. If I slapped you 25 times, you're going to have a red mark on your face. It doesn't mean that it hurt. There was no crushed bones, there was no CTE, there was no brain damage, but Khamzat was still able to hold him down, right? So that means this guy's tired. So after 20 minutes of enduring this crap, it was a glimpse of hope at the end for Dricus to actually turn it around. Twice he got on top, gave up one of the positions by trying to go for a submission. I don't know why he did that. Maybe he thought that's it, whatever. But it was obvious that right at the end of the 4th round, and when he went into the 5th, he told his coach, he's like, listen, man, I am going to go out there and I'm going to win. So he tried his best. I understand that. And then he gave up the top position. A second time, he got reversed easily, and that was pretty much the end of it, right? So why was it a boring fight? Oh, I'm sorry. I have to go back and say who made it an exciting fight. So Dricus made it exciting because there was still a glimmer of hope until the very end of the last round that maybe he was going to turn this around. Maybe he was going to get like a completely dominating round, and at least it would have been like a match that said, okay, well, Khamzat decided to stand up for a little bit and like risk it all and try to fight him striking, but that wasn't Khamzat's plan, which I'll get to in a second. So Dricus made it exciting, and Mark Goddard, that's the referee. I think he did it in the 4th round, but I know for a fact he did it twice in the 5th, or maybe he did it once in the 4th and once in the 5th, and then once in the 5th. He stood them up. And the second time he stood them up, Khamzat was like, I don't know why, you'll stand me up. It's like, why? Because the fucking crowd's booing. And the reason why they're booing, it's not because they're casuals. They're booing because it's like, wait a minute. We paid to see an MMA match, and what we're seeing is 80% wrestling, 10% striking, and 10% just like, getting punched in the face, right? They wanted to see MMA, and what they got was a great wrestling match. And a great wrestling match is all it takes right now to win in the UFC. But, okay, Khamzat was then interviewed afterwards. Oh, was this your strategy? I did not have strategy. I'm doing a terrible fucking impersonation. It's like, I did not have strategy. I went in there. I just want to take him down. That's it. I hold him down. I do it all the time in the gym. Okay, great. Fantastic, right? Well, the fact is, he got him in this crucifix position. If you are a jiu-jitsu person and you try to hold someone down in your class for 5 minutes, your teacher will say, Jeff, what the hell are you doing? Okay, that's frowned upon. It's frowned upon because you're trying to finish the fucking match. Okay? No one likes to watch a jiu-jitsu match where you just have a guy who's on top holding the guy at the bottom down. By the way, the most hated position, for some reason, which I don't understand, this is the foundation of all Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The most hated position in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is called the guard. Guard is when you're on your back on the bottom and you wrap your legs around your opponent and you just hold them down. And you do it until the referee, breaks you up, or basically you have to wait for the round to end, right? That's frowned upon for some reason. What Khamzat Chimaev did, laying on top of Dricus du Plessis, getting him in that crucifix where he trapped his leg with his legs, trapped one of his arms with his other arms, and just, gave him these little slaps. I mean, that is the equivalent of going into a jiu-jitsu match, going in the guard position, and, trying your best to get all these different submissions, which Khamzat really didn't try. He tried one submission multiple times. Maybe he tried two, but it looked like he really wanted to get that back, which Dricus wasn't giving him, which, again, I'm going to touch on to why that's a perfect strategy against Khamzat, especially for a real jiu-jitsu guy, which I haven't seen in years in the UFC, but I digress. Khamzat said, I'm going to go into this match. I'm going to pace my punches. I'm going to pace my striking. I'm going to take him down immediately. And no matter what he does, I'm just going to hold this guy down and I'm going to win pure wrestling. I'm going to wrestle this guy to the ground. I'm not going to give up any like kind of position. If I do give up a position, I'm going to reverse it and I'm going to go on top again and I'm going to hold him down and I will become champion. Great strategy. It worked. Maybe Dricus thought that after round 3, Khamzat was going to be tired. Well, you're not going to be tired when you're like slapping someone like this over 500 times. That's not going to work. Okay, and out of all those strikes, I'm going to give you the exact stats so you can see them. I'm going to put them on the screen here. I think out of these over 500 strikes, about 70 of them, maybe even less than that, were significant strikes. And you could tell because, again, post-match, Dricus was completely coherent. Like I said, no brain damage and no CTE. And I don't like it when the crowd boos. I understand why they were booing. I mean, I don't know how you could boo a person who dominantly takes down the other guy. If anything, I thought that maybe Dricus was, could have tried a different strategy maybe. Maybe he could have learned a lot more jiu-jitsu because he was in the right position. And so now I'm going to reveal a couple things that tell you why Dricus du Plessis was able to last as long as he did, okay? I don't know why this is going on in MMA the last few years. And by MMA, I mean the UFC specifically, because the UFC is, the king, right? King, queen, whatever you want to call it. In the UFC, all right, I don't know what happened. Wrestling started taking over. And this started with, I think, Khamzat Chimaev. And Khamzat Chimaev. I'm thinking of Khamzat now. Can you believe it? I was actually thinking of Khabib Nurmagomedov. Forgive me, they both have K's in their first name. Khabib Nurmagomedov. Dominant. 29 wins, no losses, right? However, we knew at some point, if it got to round 3, go watch all of Khabib's fight. And I mean all of them. When you get to round 3 with Khabib, since he put so much effort into trying to submit the guy the first 2 rounds, super exciting, and most of the time he would submit them, right? I mean, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, right? I think it was Charles Oliveira that he also submitted. But he submitted a bunch of people, right? And you knew that at some point, if it got to round 3, which is what happened with Conor, he's going to stand up with Conor and he's going to try to strike. It's like he's giving his wrestling a rest. Sure, got back to round 4, took him down, and what did he do? He submitted Conor McGregor in round 4, all right? But Khamzat Chimaev, you knew, was going to put 100% into every strike. Watch all of his fights. There's no slapping. Like, this guy is dropping elbows. He's risking a position. In that top position, he's risking giving it up. Something Khamzat didn't do. There was no risk involved. He just wanted to get these little slaps in to build it up on the judges' scorecard so that there will be no question that he was going to be what? Was it 50-45 or whatever the final judgment was, which again, I agree with based on striking, based on control time on the ground. But you knew it, with the Khabib, there's a possibility he might ground and pound this guy to death. Okay, maybe. The same thing with Islam Makhachev, who has basically the Khabib Nurmagomedov fighting style 2.0. Because he's a better striker. As a matter of fact, he has much better kicks. I mean, how many times has he knocked out people with a head kick? I mean, he took out one of the best in the division. Okay, twice. And he's dominating. And now, he's moving up to a different weight class. So it's fantastic, right? But even though he's so dominant on the ground because of their Sambo background, which is basically jiu-jitsu, it's Russian jiu-jitsu, which has no emphasis on the back, which is a key here. Very, very important. Is why these people are dominating so much using Sambo in wrestling. Sambo is basically wrestling with a lot of emphasis on back submissions, and the only submission that they seem to have from the top is the I call it an arm triangle. It's like the arm in triangle. This is like the only thing that they love doing. But with jiu-jitsu, you have a lot more options from the back. They've been dominating, and there's no jiu-jitsu guys that can stop them at all. So how did Dricus last 5 rounds despite getting dominated? Pay attention. Every single round, when he found himself possibly giving up his back, if he wasn't on the fence trying to get up, which was the right thing to do, he would turn around and face Khamzat, not allowing Khamzat to have his back. Okay? And he put his hands in the right position. He was blocking his neck. Even when it looked like Khamzat was going to submit him, his hands were in the right position to just give himself a little bit of space to get out of there. That's some high-level jiu-jitsu, like the Jetsons, high-level jiu-jitsu shit going on there. Had he been a skilled jiu-jitsu person, like a Royce Gracie, for example, okay, he could have gotten a triangle at the bottom, but he wasn't putting his legs in the right position. His legs were on the bottom. The only time I saw him really really lock that guard in, I think was in the 5th round. He might have done it a couple of times before that. But the reason why he was able to survive against Khamzat is because he refused to give up his back. So important when you're fighting these Sambo guys. So important when you're fighting wrestlers. And wrestlers hate being on their back. As a matter of fact, they will give up their back and not reverse you, just so that they can get out of the bottom position. And the only time where they happen to reverse is if you make a mistake on top. All right. So a good jiu-jitsu guy, if he exists, which I don't know where they are anymore. But a full-blown Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu trained guy who has some striking in MMA can give Khamzat a run. I don't know if he'll defeat him, but at least he'll put him into positions. How do I know this is true? Go back and watch the Gilbert Burns fight. Okay? Gilbert Burns was not able to finish Khamzat for one reason. His striking sucks. And his defense sucks, okay? Gilbert Burns will get hit 100 times in the face with a jab because his blocking sucks and he never fixes it. Go watch all of his fights. He's always giving up. It's like people have problems fighting Gilbert Burns when they try to give him a hook, or when they're giving like very very like telling strikes. Okay, in other words, if you can actually see it telegraphic coming, then Gilbert Burns has pretty good defense, but he has no basic jab defense. He'll get jabbed to death. And this is what Khamzat did to him, right? So Khamzat gets him on the floor. And what does Gilbert Burns do? Pulls guard. But then when he sees, nothing's happening from the bottom, he moves his knees inside, which is what you learn in jiu-jitsu, and he pushes him back with his feet, and he almost gave him an up kick, which for some reason is illegal in the UFC, which is idiotic. Renzo Gracie proved that it works. I don't know why it's illegal. It makes no sense. They should bring it back. But he used that up kick to kick Khamzat halfway across the freaking cage. I think that was round 2. Go back and watch that fight. You give me a Gilbert Burns who can strike like Dricus, but has the jiu-jitsu skills of Gilbert Burns. You now have a fight where someone could possibly beat Khamzat. Because Dricus does not have the jiu-jitsu skills from the bottom position in order to submit Khamzat. So many chances he had. So many chances. And he couldn't finish him. All right, so let's look at these stats, because this is actually is astounding. Is astounding what these stats show. All right, here we go. There they are, and it's like so funny to read these stats. Here we go. Right, I want you to look at this. Where are you? Right here. All right, look. What does that say? 529 of 567 strikes thrown landed. 78%. Unbelievable. 12 of 17 takedowns. Unbelievable. Just incredible, right? Look at this. 529 strikes landed. Out of these 529 strikes, how many were significant out of 529? 37. So where's the percentage that says what percentage of this, which would be 37, is actually, strikes that did something? And what are we talking in probably in the 10%, maybe in the 20% range? That means that 20% of all of Khamzat's strikes actually meant something. Okay, even over here it says 78%. No, that means he threw 47 significant strikes out of 567. Okay, that's that stat right there. 47 of his 567 attempted strikes were significant, and out of those 47, 37 landed. You know, Dricus landed 13. I thought he landed a lot more than that. I mean, it looked 29 sounds about right for like the amount that he was able to actually land. But what about all those slaps? How come the slaps that he was throwing didn't count? But anyway, this is absolutely astounding. You're going to tell me Dricus wouldn't be dead right now after getting hit 529 times if this wasn't significant? Come on. But no, 37. That's the number. So we have 5 rounds. Out of 5 rounds, 37 legitimate punches or strikes landed on Dricus. 37 in 5 rounds. That's a terrible stat. Pay attention to this, because out of this, again, 567 thrown, 47 actually did something, and the rest of them didn't do shit. Think about that for a second, okay? Now, check this out down here, right? 75%, landed in the, the head, 50% in the body, whatever, and 7% in the legs. Not really that significant. Doesn't really matter here, And but this right here is absolutely astounding. Absolutely astounding to me. Unbelievable. And again, 21 minutes and 40 seconds of control time. Now look at this over here. 53 seconds. At the end, Dricus there would have been a possibility for Dricus to actually do something had he had any kind of skills. But unfortunately, he doesn't. He doesn't have the ground game in terms of jiu-jitsu in order to go after Khamzat. And that's something that you really got to pay attention to here. So if Khamzat faces a guy who actually knows jiu-jitsu with the striking of Dricus, so in other words, my perfect person to fight Khamzat next will be a guy who has the striking ability and the defense, by the way, the wrestling defense of Dricus du Plessis, which is unbelievable, combined with the Gilbert Burns level of jiu-jitsu. I think that person has a chance, a real chance to defeat Khamzat Chimaev. Until that person comes along, let's look at the division and see who the hell he's going to fight. Sean Strickland, who keeps claiming that he has amazing wrestling, he's going to get mauled because the same thing's going to happen. He's going to get held down. He's going to get punched in the face. He's going to bleed all over because now he has so much scar tissue. He's almost like a Nate Diaz, right? Pop him in the eye and that's it. He's bleeding for 25 minutes. Like a woman on her period that can't seem to plug it up. I mean, who else is in there? Nasser Dean? We haven't really seen what Nasser Dean can do wrestling-wise, right? What about, the fight that I want to see, just because it will be a massive fight, in terms of names and just weird styles, even though we know what the hell's going to happen, be Khamzat Chimaev versus Israel Adesanya, because Adesanya just in the background coming off of 3 losses. It would still be a significant win for Khamzat, even though it will be a completely dominant fight, and we know what the hell's going to happen there, because there's no way in hell that Israel Adesanya is going to learn any kind of wrestling skills unless he goes to Dricus's camp and starts learning how to wrestle from him. He's a very stringy physique. He's not that powerful on the ground, but he does have the striking. And I mean, who else is he going to fight in that division? I mean, I think at this point, Khamzat should just say, screw it. Look, I won this belt. I'm going to move up or I'm going to move down. Who knows? Either way. So, my whole point is, and again, I'm just going to throw this stat up one more time so that you guys can see why people are calling it a boring fight. And it does make sense to call it a boring fight. 567 strikes. 529 landed, and out of those 529 that landed, only 37 were significant. Again, this number, this 78%, does not pertain to this. It pertains to 47 significant strikes out of 529. Talking what? 30% of the strikes, 20 were actually significant. The rest were just baby slaps. Well, Dricus threw 29, and he landed 13. Didn't do a damn thing. Well, look at this control time: 21 minutes and 40 seconds. If you've never wrestled and you've never taken jiu-jitsu, right? I mean, especially if you've never taken a jiu-jitsu class, you would know you will get yelled at and ridiculed by anyone for doing what Khamzat did and just holding a guy down and doing absolutely nothing. Stand you up and they will say, look, man, you can't just wrestle on the bottom like that, because that's what it is, Wrestling on the bottom meaning laying on top of a guy. The dominant, it was completely dominant. Did Dricus have no answer for anything that Khamzat had? Yeah, up until the last round where there was a glimmer of hope, but even then he couldn't finish it, right? However, you got to look at the flip side. We watched 25 minutes of Khamzat completely dominating Dricus du Plessis on the ground, holding him down in that crucifix position mostly. He failed at taking his back and failed at finishing. He failed at getting the arm in triangle. He failed at getting any kind of a choke because the defense from Dricus was absolutely amazing, and Dricus never got tired. I think they probably could have went 10 rounds, and I think the outcome probably would have been exactly the same. Khamzat probably would have had a heart attack at that point, but Khamzat still would have won. So pay attention, guys. Yes, the fight ended up being boring. Why? Because we knew what the hell was going to happen in rounds 3, 4, and 5. Was it a dominant performance? Of course it was. Is anyone out there, as good as Khamzat Chimaev is in terms of wrestling in the UFC? No, he wins. Did he deserve that win? Hell yeah. And anyone who says otherwise, you're a casual. But it's not a casual take to say that was a boring fight. Just look at these stats. Those stats. Where's my finger? I want my finger to point in the right direction. There you go. Right? Just look at those stats. How can a man take 500 punches and still live? I mean, you would at least think that Dricus' eye would pop out of his socket. You would think that his brain would be hanging off if he really got hit 500 times. No. He got hit only really with significant strikes right here 37 times in 25 minutes. And he got held down for 21 minutes and 41 seconds. That, my friends, is a boring fight from rounds 3 to 5. And the two people who made it interesting were Dricus du Plessis and Mark Goddard, the referee. It's not a casual take. I like Khamzat Chimaev. I like Dricus. I like Khamzat Chimaev a lot more. How do I know? I fight everybody. I kill you. I kill me. I come back to life after I die, my friend. But we don't have that. Now we have Khamzat Boring Chimaev. Khamzat Boring Chimaev. I won the belt, brother. I love you, brother. I fight everyone, brother. I fight you. I fight me. I fight him. I don't fight him, though, because I like him. I like Bar. Okay, and it's just like, dude, I like him. He's a good fighter. But I'm sorry, that was a boring fight. And if you don't think so, you're entitled. You're entitled to be wrong. So go ahead and be wrong, my friend, because the fact is, it was a boring fight. It wasn't great. Deal with it.